Good afternoon. It is 2:33 p.m. on Wednesday, October 18th, 2023, and I call the Committee on Housing, Sustainability, and Health meeting to order. Welcome Vice Chair Kia Aina, Council Members Okimoto and Toba. I believe Councilmember Dos Santos Tam should be on his way. I'd like to go ahead and read the instructions for today. Pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-3.7, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony remotely or in person in the council chamber on all items on the agenda when each item is taken up. All persons who register to testify in person will be called upon first, followed by those who register to testify remotely. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. For those standing by remotely, please utilize the Zoom raise hand feature to indicate your desire to speak. For those joining us by telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I'll identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Before testifying, each person shall state their full name and will be limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at a remote meeting to be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. I'll first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside the council chamber, under HRS Section 92-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audiovisual contact with you and cannot reconvene until we reestablish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you'll be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones, and we'll go first to agenda item number 1 for action, resolution 23-248, recognizing the presence of Councilmember Dos Santos Tam as well. This resolution relates to accepting a gift of travel, lodging, and meal expenses valued at $1,437.50 to the city from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network for the Executive Director of the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency to attend the 2023 USDN annual meeting in New Orleans, Louisiana, October 22nd to 25, 2023. For the administration, I believe we have Deputy Director Sullivan from the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. Members, are there any questions for the Deputy Director? Sensing none, we'll go to testifiers. I don't believe, clerks, do we have in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, and don't see any in-person folks in the gallery if you wanted to step forward now. Otherwise, we'll go to remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any remote registered testifiers or unregistered testifiers online for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll close testimony. Members, any discussion? Since if I could ask Deputy Director to go ahead and just come up, and if you wanted to just give us, we see the resolution, but maybe just an overview of the importance and the value it'll bring to the city.
Thank you, Chair. Ben Sullivan, Deputy Director, Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. Council members, the travel that you have in front of you is for Director Gonzer to attend in New Orleans. As you know, this is a national network of sustainability directors, so others that work in municipalities that we network with on a regular basis to solve some of the challenges that we run into and that we discuss with you on a frequent and regular basis, including things such as like how to access federal funds and do a better job with that, including some of the challenges associated with our climate change planning, other things. So it's really an important peer network that offers a lot of value. Before I sit down, I just want to apologize for the lateness of this because obviously Director Gonzer is already traveling. We did have some difficulty obtaining the specific information from the sponsor in terms of the value of those items because I think they were just so busy planning their annual meeting. And so it arrived with you late, which is we recognize less than ideal. Happy to take any questions if there are, but is that enough, Chair?
No, that is perfect. I appreciate the explanation for the lateness as well. Just wanted to clarify, so accepting a gift, does this mean that no city funds are used for these travel expenses?
That is correct.
Okay, mahalo. Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Deputy Director. Appreciate that. The chair is going to recommend that Resolution 23-248 be reported out for adoption. Any additional discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. And that brings us to agenda item number 2 for action, Resolution 23-254, accepting a gift of travel, lodging, and meal expenses valued at $3,247 to the city from the Aspen Institute for the Executive Director, the Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency to attend the 2023 Bloomberg City Lab in Washington, D.C. from October 18th through 20th, 2023. I believe we also have Deputy Director Sullivan here from the administrations. If there are no questions for the Deputy Director members, I'll go to in-person testimony. Clerks, do we have any in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Mahalo, Madam Clerk. Anyone wishing to testify can step forward, but since seeing none, we'll move on to remote testimony. Madam Clerk, do we have any remote registered or unregistered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll close testimony in this item, and I'm going to be making my recommendation. Any discussion? Vice Chair Kiaina.
Hi, this is with regard to item number 2.
Yes.
You know, both of these gifts, the first and second one, they are clearly meritorious. It's just that, you know, I don't know if it should be a practice to always be accepting things just back to back, just because you're going to be in an area and you go to another one, you know, because I know that there's a lot of other conferences throughout the year. So I just ask, you know, that maybe you think about it. It's not about just because I'm up on the continent, why don't I go to another conference? I just think one conference is good and you come back, right? That's all. So I just wanted to make a comment that it's just back to back. I don't know if both were necessary. I think that if I had to choose out of both of them, it'd probably be the one in Washington, D.C., because unless you go there and go and talk to the various agencies, and while he's there, I think he should go. We're having a federal infrastructure workshop on the Inflation Reduction Act at the convention center here on December 11th. Go talk to the appropriate federal agencies there. For me, he can find out more of what's going on and to tap into funds instead of going to conferences in different parts of the country and try to learn the ropes from others. So that's my only mana'o. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Vice Chair. Since you know, was your thoughts? No comment was necessary from CCSR. It sounded like. Appreciate that. Any additional discussion or comments? Sensing none, the chair is going to recommend that Resolution 23-254 be reported out for adoption. Any additional discussion on that recommendation, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. And then that brings us to agenda item number 3. Resolution 23-204 requesting the city's Department of Customer Services and the Hawaiian Humane Society to provide a briefing to the City Council on the city's feral cat population and their programs to control such population. I believe we have Director Hashiro of Department of Customer Services. Members, before testimony, were there any questions for Director at this time? Sensing none, we'll go to in-person registered testifiers. If Stephanie Kendrick is present, you can come up. That's the only registered testifier, so anyone else unregistered, if you want to stand up and make your way up. And Ms. Kendrick, if you want to just turn on the mic, identify yourself, and proceed when you're ready.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, committee members, Steph Kendrick from the Hawaiian Humane Society. You have our written testimony. I just wanted to emphasize that as the city contractor and a valued partner of the city, we have no objection to providing a report to the council on this issue. In fact, we would look forward to that opportunity to discuss all that's being accomplished with the city's investment in a free-roaming cat management program and to talk about maybe ways we can work together to make it more effective.
Appreciate that, Ms. Kendrick. Any questions for the testifier? If I may just ask you a quick question, and just to make sure we're good. So our next...
Sorry, Chair.
No problem at all. Our next committee meeting, I believe, is on November 15th. Would you be available to come back at that time to do a presentation?
I will be on the mainland on the 15th, but I'm happy to remote in for that if that's acceptable to the chair.
Okay, would you prefer to remote in or do a different date or
I
send
would
someone else?
prefer to be in person if that's not objectionable to the committee.
Okay, thank you for that.
But either way, I'm willing to do whatever serves your needs best.
Okay, mahalo. I believe Councilmember Toba also has a question.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
So that we can understand, what other strategies can we can implement to address the issue?
Thank you for asking that. You know, there's a lot of critics, and the tenor of this resolution reflects that somewhat, who say TNR doesn't work, and TNR is the strategy that we've embraced as a community to try and reduce this population. My opinion is we haven't really given that a chance to work. And some of the things that we could do to make it more effective, for example, would be to have formal agreements between the volunteer caregivers and city departments, say the Parks Department, the Transportation Department, so that the caregivers could really have standards and protocols for managing the cats on those properties. And I think that that would be an enormous leap forward that we could make on this issue and really cost neutral to the city. It would just be getting your folks involved with helping us come up with those agreements. So that would be one way to improve the situation. Another would be to do surveillance cameras in areas where we know there are very high abandonment rates for these animals. The Hawaii Kai Park and Ride, which I know is in Chair Waters' district, is a great example of that. There are dedicated caregivers out there who do a great job spaying and neutering those animals, but they get new pets abandoned there, if not daily, weekly. So it's an enormous problem. It's already illegal. We just need a way to deter the people who are doing that. And I think surveillance cameras with posted signage, which has been effective in prior dumping areas, would be a great way to do that. And we'd love to partner with the city on that as well.
Thank you. You think you'd be open to, like, maybe giving us a briefing every couple of months so that we,
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Great questions. Any other? Okay, we'll hold it for discussion and then maybe Director Ken. Mahalo, Ms. Kendrick. And then since no other testifiers in the gallery, Madam Clerk, do we have any online registered or unregistered testifiers?
Chair, we have remote testifiers.
Okay. Do I have that list? Oh, Ms. Young, if you want to unmute and proceed when you're ready.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and the City Council. Angela Melody Young testifying in strong support. And so a strategy to manage the cat crisis and overpopulation is trap and neuter, and it's very effective. And I believe, not only just from my professional experience as an animal advocate, animal rights advocate, animal rescuer, but also through working with the professional clinics and adoption cafes, and you'll hear their testimony also, is that it works and that there must be more management through the state and city agencies to mitigate this statewide concern. So the thing is, people are complaining about the species, and you really have to try to see if those are truths or not, because you see that people do foster and adopt cats. They have cat cafes now, which are very, it's a thing, and so. Is it the truth what people say and try to do to cats? Because animal cruelty is also a concern.
Mahalo, Angela. Appreciate your testimony on this item. Thank you so much. We'll go next to Holly Halawat. Apologies if I mispronounced that. And I think you do need to unmute, and then you can identify yourself and proceed.
Okay. All right. So, aloha, my name is Holly Hollowak. You pronounce it perfectly, the founder of Popoki Place, the Oahu Cat Sanctuary. There is a strategy to reduce the free-roaming cat population on Oahu that can work and won't ignite protest. It requires 4 equally important components: people fixing their cats and keeping them indoors or in their yard, adoptions, trap, neuter, return, manage, and a large-scale sanctuary. Thousands of Oahu residents are working hard on this issue. We need consistent, reliable, accessible spay-neuter to get control of the population. The Hawaii Community Foundation, Hawaii Humane Society, and Cat Friends Hawaii are already doing TNR with much success, and the demand is already exceeding supply. A large-scale sanctuary is a humane option for an urgent cat relocation. Popoki Place, Oahu Cat Sanctuary, is ready to build a sustainable, large-scale sanctuary to be safely contain problem cats. But we need land. We have the support of the state and the community, but no land yet. We would love to see the council fund these strategic initiatives as part of their animal control kuleana. Mahalo nui loa.
Mahalo for your testimony. Any questions for this testifier? Seeing none. Are there any other unregistered testifiers online, Madam Clerk?
Chair, there are none.
Mahalo. We'll go ahead and close testimony. Welcome Chair Waters to the chamber. I know Vice Chair will be in discussion now, had a question. Did you want to make a comment first on the resolution or, okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to understand the objective of this resolution. Is it because the Department of Customer Services was unwilling to come to a informational briefing to present?
Also, I'll defer. I mean, so I didn't introduce the resolution. Grateful Ms. Kendrick offered to come back to do a briefing. And so my inclination for discussion purposes was to postpone the reso until we had a discussion, but I'm open to suggestions from any of the committee members or other members of the council if they have preference.
Well,
Yeah.
well, I just don't know why a resolution is necessary when we can just ask them and agendize it on a future hearing. So I don't know. There must have been a reason for dialogue, because if we want a briefing, we can just ask them. We can agendize it. So I'm just was wondering what the intent of the resolution is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think I defer to the language in the resolution on the intent. The reason for agendizing it was on committee chair's part, just to allow for the dialogue, the conversation with Ms. Kendrick, and I guess also we can always ask the department today as well, is that sounds like the committee would be best served by doing a briefing, and so that's probably the direction we're gonna go.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any other comment on that or any other discussion? Chair Waters.
Thank you. I mean, the whole point is to bring people to the table to discuss the problem. There is a problem with feral cats on this island. I get a lot of complaints from folks in Hawaii Kai about the Hawaii Kai Park and Ride area. And I'm trying to get community services and Hawaiian Humane Society and anybody else who wants to opine on how to take care of this problem to come to the table and talk about it. I was hoping that would happen today, but I get your point that I could have asked the chair to have a briefing on this, but why not do a resolution? Why not bring it to the forefront? Why not talk about it like this so that people start waking up and realizing that this is a problem? The urine from cats is dangerous, right? It kills our reef. Cats are killing our endangered birds, right? This is a problem that we need to take care of. And I apologize if I'm offending you, but this is necessary, I think, to bring this up for people to actually realize that this is a problem. We want to do it in a humane way. We want to do it the right way, because I will tell you, at the Hawaii Kai Neighborhood Board, people came out on both sides of the issue, and both sides actually realized that there is a problem. But how do we deal with it is the real question. How do we deal with this so that both sides are satisfied? Because you'd be amazed how passionate people are when it comes to cats. But anyway, I'm totally open to doing this on another day. today is a busy day. I know we have an agenda after this at 3:30, which I hope all of you can remain for. Thank you.
Mahalo, Chair. We'll go to, Vice Chair, did you have any?
Thank you, Chair Waters. No, I'm not offended. In fact, when the feral chicken contract was extended to private landowners, I received communications from community on what we were going to do about feral cats. So I just was trying to understand the mechanism on how we were trying to trigger the dialogue. So I welcome your, I think your district is probably more engaged than some of mine. So I welcome the dialogue and look forward to a robust discussion on both sides of the issue.
Appreciate that. Councilor Dos Santos, Tam.
Thank you. I'd like to echo Vice Chair Kiaina's comments. I think I look forward to having the actual briefing rather than a reso about our briefing, because at that briefing, I think we can talk to those departments. When we do have that, I'd like to also ask if the Parks Department would like to attend, because as we see with the feral chicken issue, there are two problems to this. There's the feral animals, in this case cats, but of course also chickens on private property, but our parks have tons of them, right? And we as a city have a much easier and more direct kuleana to deal with those feral animals than it is to go tell private, people what to do with their property and get involved in kind of those private disputes. So I'd like to recommend that the Parks Department also attend if possible. I do want to note, and I think Ms. Hendricks from the Humane Society alluded to this, there are many other things that other cities have done, including Miami Beach, which has a very robust registered feeder program. And those feeders, if they choose to feed, also choose to be responsible for that cat colony. And that includes making sure that the TNR program works. I think the problem that we have now is there's just people who drop by, feed, and don't take any other responsibility. And that's part of the issue. So if we're going to make TNR work, and for the record, I'm a big supporter of TNR, if we're going to make that work, the people involved, have to take full responsibility for the T and the N and the R aspects of TNR, not just the feeding.
Appreciate that. Any further discussion? I was going to ask Ms. Hashiro to come up. Chair Waters. Okay. And while she's coming up for the purposes of my discussion, are there any other requests for presenters to be present when we do this briefing? Ms. Kendrick has indicated she'll be available. Aloha, Director. My request to you, or for the administration, rather, I know you're here for this, was would you be available for a future briefing and or be able to relay to the administration if Parks Department could also be present, or whoever is representing the administration, probably you could also reflect or represent Parks' perspective on this.
Yes, we can do that.
Okay, mahalo. Chair Waters.
Well, thank you. The idea was to provide a briefing today. So let me just ask you, I know you have a busy calendar, but what is the City and County of Honolulu Department of Customer Services doing with regard to the cat population and programs to control such populations? I mean, you read the reso, right?
Yes.
You agree with it, that there is a problem?
Yes.
Okay, great. What is the City and County of Honolulu doing?
So what we do now is we contract with the Humane Society, and they are focused on different areas in their contract and responsible for different things. The primary focus, as Stephanie explained a little while ago, is to trap and either neuter or spay and then return cats to the community. We realize that this is a long-term solution because it's going to actually take a generation to reduce that colony. And I have heard things, when I was working at the university, there is, and still I think is a colony there that has shrunk significantly over time. So it appears to work. But in addition to that, part of our contract is placement. The Humane Society is tasked to look at ways to place animals into sanctuaries. Apparently, or unfortunately, on Oahu, the existing sanctuaries are at capacity. So they're not able to place animals easily. And Stephanie, I don't know if you want to also add to that and just elaborate on that, but I know that's also part of it. And, of course, what was mentioned earlier about homeowners or pet owners being responsible, right? Spaying and neutering their own animals and keeping them in the house or on property is definitely an important way of managing the cat population. So it is definitely multi-pronged. And as you know, with our Faro Chicken program, which we've expanded now from city property to a subsidized private property program, we are looking at various ways. We're open to trying different things, piloting different programs. So in the briefing, we'd be happy to talk about that and have more discussion regarding that. Chair Waters, unfortunately, we're not prepared today to provide that briefing, but we'd be happy to do it at a future date.
No, I mean, what you're saying is, I think, important, that the city really doesn't do anything other than fund the private enterprise to do it, right?
Correct.
We don't have city workers out there catching cats, taking them to get neutered, spayed, and then replacing them, right? We don't have city.
We don't.
Okay, so we contract with a private vendor. And how much do these contracts cost? How much are we paying?
So the
I know
current-
we talked about chickens. It was a very small amount, $50,000, which
Yeah.
in my mind is
And
nowhere
while
near enough.
Director is looking up that info, I'll just note, I know we have another committee at 3:30, and I did indicate my recommendation to do a briefing, but I'll let you continue. I don't know if you're going to tap in Ms. Kendrick to answer the further elaborate as well, but I'll defer to you, Chair.
Okay, just real quick. Do you know how much we are paying?
So currently for fiscal '24, it's $430,000.
430,000, okay. Thank you. No, I'm looking forward to the briefing. Again, I introduced the resolution hoping that we'd do it today, but I'll defer to you. If you want to do a whole hearing on cats, then I'm perfectly fine with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. No, we definitely won't do the whole hearing on cats, so appreciate that. Ms. Kendrick, I know if you want to add anything else to what Director was saying, I'd invite you to do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to actually confirm what Director Haishiro shared, which is that the sanctuaries, and these are places, again, that accept unsocialized cats, cats that wouldn't be able to be adopted into homes, are full on Oahu. We do still very much welcome socialized cats, and we find them homes on a daily basis. So, and those come from colonies managed outside as well as from people's pets. So we welcome the community to bring those socialized cats for us so that we can get them into our homes. And just to dial down a little bit on what the city does fund in regard to this issue, at this point it is purely the subsidized spay-neuter of these cats. So it costs the city between $40 to $50 to spay or neuter a free-roaming cat so that the caregivers aren't bearing that financial burden. And since the program started, we've sterilized more than 23,000 cats under the program.
Chair Waters, for Ms. Kendrick or?
Ms. Kendrick. So to clarify too, though, that is the Humane Society going out? Are you from the Humane Society?
I am, sir.
Okay, thank you. Is the Humane Society actually going out, like say to Hawaii Kai and catching the cats, spaying and neutering them, and putting them back in Hawaii Kai?
So we don't do the trapping. We don't have the manpower for that. It's the community volunteers who are going out there and trapping cats and bringing them to us. We're doing the spay-neuter, as well as some other clinics on the island.
I see. So it's up to the private citizen to go out and catch the cats themselves.
And we're very lucky that there are volunteers who are passionate about this issue.
Okay, and then the people who actually want to do that, are they charged to use these cages to trap them?
Most of the ones who do it at any kind of volume have their own traps. When we first started the program, part of the city funding did go to buying a bunch of traps that we shared with the trapping groups. But since then, the city funding has gone exclusively to spay-neuter.
Okay, so how do people get a hold of a trap if they wanted to
We
trap?
do loan them out to the public. If people just want to do, a one-off to trap the cat in their yard, we rent traps.
Okay, free of charge.
There's a deposit, which I believe is $100, and you get 75 of that back.
Okay, so for $25, you can rent the trap from the
Yeah,
Humane
and we say you can have it for a week. Basically, you can have it indefinitely as long as we at some point get it back so we can give you back the rest of your deposit.
Okay, but the whole program is dependent upon volunteers then to take care of this problem, because the Humane
Absolutely.
Society is doing the surgery portion of it.
Absolutely. If the volunteers weren't engaged, we would be much worse off in this regard as we are today.
Okay, and then if there aren't volunteers, then it's not going to happen. right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, just something to think about looking at the budget next year, that if we believe this is a problem, then we should perhaps put our money where our mouth is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mahalo for that. Just for discussion purposes, given the robust discussion today, just wanted to check. So do we still want to invite guests back for a briefing? I'll poll the committee. Council members, anyone would like the briefing to occur? Councilmember
Yeah,
Oba?
I would like
Okay.
to have a briefing, thanks.
Okay, so if chair and others are okay, the recommendation is going to be to postpone action on resolution 23-204 to time and date to be determined by the committee chair. And then I know we noted that Humane Society, the next committee meeting in November wasn't ideal, so we might do the committee after that if there are no objections to that. But again, we'll keep it open to date determined by the chair. Any discussion, reservations, objections to that? I believe director also had the request for information at the next briefing as well. Okay, mahalo. So ordered. Mahalo, Ms. Kendrick again, and we'll go to item number 4. For action, this is resolution 23-162, initiating amendments to the revised charter of the City and County of Honolulu 1973 as amended relating to the establishment of a climate resiliency fund. Members, please note that we have posted to the agenda the CD1 OCS 2023-0793 that was approved by the Committee on Housing, Sustainability, and Health at its meeting on August 23rd, 2023, and reported out for passage on third reading. The Council considered the resolution at its meeting on September 6, 2023, and recommitted the resolution back to the Committee on Housing, Sustainability, and Health for further discussion. We do have a posted to the agenda, proposed CD1 OCS 2023-0923 to the resolution for your information. The summary of the amendments is listed on the agenda. I do have a hand-carried proposed CD1 OCS 2023-0967 that was filed. I'm gonna skip the description because I won't be requesting action on it today. Just turning to OCS to make sure that that's okay. I think so, yeah. And so I believe we have from the administration, I see Director Quano from Budget and Fiscal Services, also Deputy Director Sullivan from Office of Climate Change, Sustainability, and Resiliency. Members, do we have any questions for either of the directors relating to this resolution? Okay, since seeing none, we'll go ahead and go to testifiers. Clerks, do we have in-person registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you. If there are any unregistered testifiers, if you wanted to come up to the mic, unmute, and identify yourself and proceed. Aloha.
Magic. Aloha, Chairware, Vice Chair Kiaina, honorable members of the committee. My name is Dyson Chi. I'm 21 years old, and I reside in Ala Moana. The last time I came here and testified, I think I had not graduated high school yet. I'm happy to say that I've graduated from college now, so a lot's changed since then. But one of the things that hasn't changed is, my generation and my personal concern over our futures, with the climate crisis being a serious threat. And one of the worst ways that we're concerned about it is the fact that as future and current taxpayers, we have to be able to pay for the impacts of whatever is coming in the future, a lot of it which are big unknowns that are very scary and could be seriously threatening. And so having a climate resiliency fund for us is really important because this is how we're going to be able to help pay for the mitigation of those disasters, which if we don't pay for them now, get even worse later on. So I just want to express my appreciation for having this opportunity to testify for a climate resilience fund. And I really do hope that this council will pass a climate resiliency fund for all of us. Mahalo for the opportunity to testify.
Mahalo, any questions for the testifier? Okay, since seeing none, mahalo, Mr. Chi. Madam Clerk, I believe we have no other testifiers in the gallery today. Are there any registered or unregistered online testifiers?
Chair, we have registered online testifiers.
Okay. Going first to Micah Munakata and then Natalie Awasa.
Chair, Micah hasn't joined the meeting yet, but we have Natalie Iwasa.
Okay, Ms. Iwasa, if you want to proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Council members, Natalie Wassa for the record. I oppose this. I submitted only late last night. As you know, this resolution would pose to the voters whether they carve out an additional 0.5% of funds from the real property taxes to cover this new climate resiliency fund. And every time that we do that, we chip away at our foundation. Real property taxes provide the highest source of income for our general fund. And, you know, we have so many pressures on us now with respect to city services, city programs, new mandates that you folks are putting into place. And I was shocked when I went downtown recently and saw Evilea and on the state capitol, where people are living on the state capitol grounds in tents. And in Evilea, you can't even walk on the sidewalks. And every time we pass these types of earmarks, it puts pressure to have additional taxes, which then puts pressure on other costs, food, rent, that type of thing. So I do not support this, and I ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iwasa. Any questions for the testifier? Sensing none, appreciate your testimony. We'll go to Ms. Young. And Madam Clerk, do we have any other unregistered online testifiers besides Ms. Young?
Chair, there are none.
Mahalo, Madam Clerk. Ms. Young, if you want to proceed.
Aloha, Chair and Vice Chair and the City Council. Angela Melody Young testifying in strong support. I think that the city does have a responsibility to appropriate funds to mitigate climate resiliency issues, to manage the climate crisis. As we heard from some of the other hearings, you know, for example, species like animal species require human intervention because of the climate heat resulting in, for example, the turtles changing sex and changing genders because of the heat. So it involves a human intervention. It requires human intervention, and it also requires the city to cooperate with community organizations, such as, for example, the previous testifier from the Climate Coalition. They have sustainability organizations that are started by the youth, the students who lead these sustainability and recycling subject matters in their advocacies. So it really requires collaborating and working together to solve the problem instead of fighting about the problem.
Mahalo for that, Ms. Young. Appreciate your testimony. Seeing no other unregistered testifiers, we'll go ahead and close testimony and come to discussion. I was going to ask Director Quano if he could come up on this item. Were there any discussion items or points or questions before I address the director? Seeing none. Aloha, Director. Mahalo for being here.
Yep. Good afternoon, Chair Housing and Safety, Chair Wire, and Council members, Chair Waters, and Vice Chair Kiaina.
Mahalo for being here, Director. Just to kind of walk through, I know we've had conversation on this, and once it leaves committee, it'll go, I think, to third reading. And so could you kind of just reiterate or walk through the administration's position, concerns, questions about both the proposed amendment and then also any drafts that were
Yeah, so in terms of the concept of addressing climate change as a priority of the administration, we agree to that. We believe that climate change, addressing climate change and the impacts of climate change is a priority, and that's why we have an office that addresses climate change under the mayor. We do not feel that the resolution for an amendment to the city's charter is needed because we are committed to spend what's necessary to address climate change as we work with you to get budgets approved on an annual basis. I agree with the testifier's comments earlier, Ms. Iwasa, in that as we keep carving amounts from our main source of revenue, we restrict what we can do in terms of important must-do type programs and activities that come up. It could be climate change related, it could be something else. So I'm concerned that if we keep carving a 0.5%, 1% of our tax base as we, I shouldn't say we, if voters agree to do that, because it's going to be voted measure, we reduce our financial flexibility going forward.
Okay, I appreciate that, Director. And I wanted to ask, if it did pass and go through, of course, as you mentioned, the council and then voters, what's your understanding of what funds could be used for? And then feel free to bring in Deputy Director Simpson as well. Specifically, I'm wondering if this can be used for operational costs, or as it's currently written, is it purely a capital project fund?
My reading of the current reso is that it can be used for programs that fall under both the operating budget and CIP budget. You know, there are under operating, for instance, there are training programs, for instance, such that, you know, the public on Oahu can be more cognizant of climate change and the impacts and, you know, what we can do to address it. On the CIP side, as an example, we are already appropriating monies to electrify our transportation system. And, you know, we are putting charging stations in place. We, every year, put money into clearing stream beds as best we can to avoid flooding. All of that is tied to addressing impacts of climate change, as examples.
I appreciate that, Director. Just to kind of add on to that, I know early on we discussed the framework that it could potentially operate under. Have there been any discussions about what that would look like, what department the fund would be administratively attached to, how funds could be shifted around and used, or is that still kind of pending the resolution?
Yeah, I think it would be pending the resolution. Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like the administration is still pretty open to ideas or...
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Does the city currently have a rainy day fund for emergency purposes or climate issues?
Interesting that you brought that up. Yes, we have a fiscal stability fund. And, you know, as a part of our plan to better address disaster preparedness, emergency management, one of the things we plan to do is look at the accessibility of the fiscal stability fund so that, you know, we can access the funding if a disaster were to happen, whether it's a wildfire, whether it's a hurricane or something else. Want to make sure that if needed, you know, we have the ability to access the funds to protect the public.
Appreciate that. Do you know how much is in that fund right now?
Off the top of my head, it's somewhere around, you know, as of right now, maybe $155 million. We're approaching $160 million.
Appreciate that, Director. It's also my understanding we have until July, not saying we're going to wait that long, but to pass out proposed charter amendments. Is that your understanding as well, in time to make them onto the ballot?
You know, in terms of due process, I'm not totally sure as to what the timing is.
Okay.
I would think that July would be, you know, if that's a target,
yeah,
that can be something worked on.
Appreciate that, because my understanding is that's the deadline, and so that does give us a little bit of time. So just for discussion purposes, my hope today was to recommend postponing one more time to have further discussion with the administration about the specific uses of the stability, our fiscal stability fund, this particular fund, maybe walk through what the framework could look like in terms of structure and which department it'd be attached to if it does pass out. And that would kind of give everyone a clearer picture of what it would actually look like and what it would actually serve if, you know, it ends up at third reading. But welcome any input on that. Chair Waters.
Thank you. Can I ask Director Quano
of course.
a quick question? Good afternoon, Director. So 0.5% equals about $8 million, right?
Yes, based on our estimated real property tax revenue and collections, it's about $8.5 million annually.
Okay, so you're saying that we already do spend money on climate change or a resiliency type of
We do,
strategy.
yes.
But this would be an additional 8 million from what we currently spend is the idea. And you're saying rather not do that, you'd rather wait and see when a disaster happens and then spend the money then?
Well, I think, like I said, we're budgeting programs and activities both on the operating and CIP side to address climate change. What I suggest is what we could do is put a little more in the fiscal stability fund annually as a part of balancing the budget versus having the voters vote on an automatic allocation to a revolving fund. For instance, clean water, natural lands. And as we've seen from time to time, we have a difficult time spending down the cash. And what happens is the cash is held, and perhaps the cash could be used for, something that we have to do in a given year.
Well, my experience with the Clean Water Natural Lands Fund is we're having a difficult time spending down the money because the administration has been overly cautious. But that's neither here nor there. Don't we do a carve out for parks with the TAT money that we receive, transient accommodation tax?
There is an ordinance to allocate 8.33% of the Oahu TAT.
Okay, 8.33% is
Right.
carved out of the amount of money that we receive from the state with the transient
Oh, no,
accommodation tax.
it's the Oahu TAT revenue base, so it's our 3%. So we actually
Right, but of the
we levy
3%,
it.
and again, this money is received from the state, but we do a carve out. Are you saying we should undo that and put that into the general fund as well? Because we're doing the same exact thing, right? We're carving out money from a designated source of funding for one thing that we think is important, parks. So here, if we're saying that the climate change is important and perhaps preparing for the inevitable thing to happen, it's the same exact thing, isn't it? We're doing a carve out.
Yes, we did not initiate that carve out.
That came from the council, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Chair. And I think share your commitment and values in terms of the fund and the purpose it could serve. And so my intention is to ultimately pass something out of committee. I think what I want to discuss more is just the flexibility, particularly the difference between the fiscal stability fund and what role this fund could serve. I think as the administration's mentioned, a lot of what the city already does relates to resilience, our stream maintenance, our fire mitigation. And I think what appeals to me is just the flexibility this could provide to departments. If it's structured in the correct way, that funding could be shifted to projects as needed. And maybe there's gaps that could be filled, gaps maybe in what the fiscal stability fund specifically does and what these funds could do. So I hope to talk more to the department about it. Any other discussion? Also invite Mr. Chi to please be in touch with our office so we can include you in the discussion on any amendments. And Chair Waters.
Thank you. And I'm open to being more flexible on how to use the funds. Like you mentioned, stream maintenance. How about storm water? Rather than charging taxpayers for the stormwater fee that's currently being considered by the city, that we use this money to upgrade our stormwater system. By the way, this could be used for construction too, right? It would help our construction industry by rebuilding our roads, rebuilding our wastewater system. But anyway, I know you're busy and we got more stuff on the clock, so I'll end there.
No, all well taken. Mahalo, everyone. Gonna make my recommendation before we move on to the next item. Just making sure. Okay. I believe we closed testimony. So the chair is going to recommend that resolution 23-162 be postponed to the, we'll say then a time to be determined by the committee chair. Any discussion, objections, or reservations on that recommendation? Okay, sensing none, so ordered. And then we'll go to agenda item number 5 for Action Bill 47, 2023, addressing curbside recycling, including the collection of manufactured compostable materials. Members, we have posted to the agenda proposed CD10 CS 2023-0921 to the bill. For your information, the summary of amendments is listed on the agenda. I believe we have Deputy Director O'Keefe present. Are there any questions as Director comes up? Our Deputy Director comes up. Sensing none, Mahalo, Deputy Director, do you want to provide any insight or perspective from the administration on this? Please go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, council members. Aloha. I'm Mike O'Keefe with the Department of Environmental Services. We support Bill 47 and including the CD1, the proposed CD1, which is actually reflective of testimony, written testimony that we provided on the bill. Really, it was the testimony was aimed at the definition of manufactured compostable material, and it was just to bring the definition a little bit more in line with state Hawaii revised statutes and existing ordinance. So I see that's reflected in the CD1, and so we support that. No really further comments at this point.
Okay, appreciate that. And I know we'll have testimony. Just wanted to ask you while you're up here. I believe it was mentioned at a previous meeting that in the RFP that was going out for the food waste and the changes that had to be made, the manufactured compostables or whatever the term is going to be was also included in that RFP. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That RFP is actually advertised right now, so it's actively published.
Okay, so the costs have already been contemplated in what's being solicited by the city. Mahalo, appreciate that. Any other questions from members or discussion? Sensing none, we'll go to Councilmember Okimoto.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question. You mentioned, thank you, Deputy Director O'Keefe, you mentioned the amendments that were proposed specifically for the manufactured compostable material. In that section, and what you have in the agenda here is that section 7, where it mentions the material specifically, but also certified by the Biodegradable Product Institute or the Composting Manufacturing Alliance. So I thought that was interesting because it's really specific to these two entities specifically, but I was just wondering, is it necessary to be so specific at this time? And I'm thinking about in the future, because if we put this into law, becomes an ordinance, what happens in the future if there's other entities or there's different entities or companies that would apply more? With us specifying these two, is that going to put us in a corner? I would hate to have to come back and make another bill to address that issue. So could you clarify or expound on that? I would prefer making it more general.
Sure.
I wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. We listed those two organizations because they're like kind of leading the industry on that topic. But really, it's for them to certify that it meets the ASTM standard for compostability, and as long as it does, if the language could be changed just to reflect it meeting that standard without sort of a specific organization certifying that it does, that we'd be fine with that.
That I think I agree with. And I appreciate you giving the exact wording. If there's something specific to say that this is what we're looking for to qualify without specifying two entities, which in the future may not be, I don't know what the future holds. So
good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Deputy Director, I'm just curious. So are those specified in the state law, or was that added in our draft?
It's not specified in the state law. It's specific to our draft.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Wow. Any additional questions, concerns? Okay. Chair was gonna. Okay, we'll go to testimony. Sorry, almost there. It is 3:27, and so at Chair Waters' consent, I would ask if we could maybe continue with committee and have executive management start. I'll say 4 o'clock, but I don't know if that's too late.
Rather than setting a designated time, can we just say that executive management will start at the conclusion of housing sustainability?
Perfect. Did you want a 5-minute window from the closing?
5-minute window would be
Okay,
perfect.
so we'll start 5 minutes after the ending of this committee hearing.
Thank you.
Perfect. Mahalo, appreciate that and the flexibility. We'll go to in-person registered testifiers. Seeing none, are there any unregistered testifiers in the gallery today? If you could step forward, and seeing none, we'll go to remote testimony. I believe we have one registered remote testifier, Natalie Owasa. Ms. Owasa, please proceed.
Thank you, Natalie Wassa, for the record. I have some comments I submitted late last night and just some concerns. Basically, I'd like you to ask more questions of the administration, and specifically, how does would the compostable materials work with all the recycling that we currently have in place? And actually, what I think would be better to do rather than moving this out is to give the food recycling program a chance to work, to see how it works, how receptive residents are to that program. And then along with that, I think really what we should be doing is a cost benefit analysis, because if we don't recycle these materials, they would end up in H-Power. We would have some ash. Of course, we have problems with our landfill. But on the other side, when you recycle these products, they take longer and they require, as I understand it, additional facilities or changes in the facilities. So, you know, there's a lot going on with this. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that there's quite a lot of contamination. And in fact, there's a resident in Councilmember Kia Aina's district who invites people to put their dog waste in whatever bin she has on the sidewalk. And, you know, somebody has to clean all that stuff out. So that's an additional cost. So, you know, I just have some concerns and ask that you do a little more questioning and we find out these answers before we put this program into place. Thank you so much.
Mahalo, Ms. Iwasa. Are there any questions for the testifier? I did have one quick one, because I always appreciate your commitment to reducing costs. So I'm just curious, because if we did food waste alone, right, went out, built the infrastructure for food waste, and then a few years later had to come back and redo the infrastructure for manufactured compostables, because it all goes in together, right? Wouldn't that be more costly than making sure the infrastructure that the city's contracting out now can handle all three, the green waste, the food waste, and the manufactured compostables?
Well, see, that's why I'm asking for additional questions, because I'm not sure. And and it isn't clear to me yet whether the food recycling program is going to require us to have a separate bin within our bins, or whether there will be a different pickup bin. And then the timing of food recycles faster. It just takes less time to compost, whereas the compostable materials take longer. So
I appreciate that.
Questions.
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I saw Deputy Director step up, so I'll let him respond. Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Iwasa.
Thank you.
So I can share some information on the planned food waste recycling program. I mentioned that the contract for the processing of that food waste is out for bid right now. So we will be including the food waste in with the green waste, which all goes currently into the green cart. It'll all be collected together, delivered to the same processing facility, and processed into compost. The process that we're both requiring in our request for proposals for that service, and that's also required in state law, it's what's called an in-vessel process. So right now, for anyone who's familiar with the way that green waste alone is currently processed, it's pretty rudimentary. It's just ground up into mulch and then organized into windrows and watered and turned over the course of several weeks. The in-vessel process everything will get similarly ground up at the start of the process, but then it'll be the organic material will then be put into an enclosed vessel where there's a lot of controls on temperature, moisture content, and including smells and vectors, actually, because food waste is a little bit more putrescible than just green waste. and then it'll get processed in that in-vessel composting facility and then come out as compost at the end. We would simply, if this were to pass, we would simply add the manufactured compostable material in with the green waste and the food waste in the green cart. That would all go into the same in-vessel facility, which would effectively process all three of those material types, producing compost at the end.
Mahalo for that, Deputy Director. I see Ms. Young. Madam Clerk, are there any other unregistered testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. So, Ms. Young, please proceed when you're ready.
Aloha, Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of CARES and in strong support. So the city put an ordinance on plastics, and now this bill amends the definition to be more inclusive of materials to be processed through the recycling process, because we all care about environmental damage caused by trash and environmentally friendly initiatives. So this work is already being discussed and worked on at the state also, and the city should be aware of where to gather knowledge and how to access the information and the organizations you need. So Hawaii Children and Youth, the summit, they voted on what's important to them, and it advises the Keiki Caucus proposals for next season. And environment, recycling, and environmental justice was number one. And they care about biodegradable material. They care about restoration of the land, and it takes not just the city, but also the youth and the children, and to stand in the gap, to work with these organizations, and to serve this purpose of being advocates for environmental justice.
Mahalo, Ms. Young. Appreciate your testimony today. And with that, we'll close testimony. Wanted to go into discussion before I make my recommendation. Any other discussion? I would just ask either Deputy Directors whether it sounded like there was support, so I'm just wanting to clarify, given Councilmember Okamoto's question about the language. Is there any additional thought on whether we should further amend the specificity in the standard, or is it preferred to keep it as it is in the proposed draft? And I can clarify that question. Did the question make sense? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Deputy Director.
It does, thank you. Yeah, without being able to offer a suggested revision, I would agree with that statement. These two organizations that are listed in the current proposed definition are, longstanding reputable sources of information. So, but I get it. They could not be around forever, and as long as we feel, as long as it is certified to meet the ASTM standard, however that happens. That's the important part of the definition, meeting the ASTM standard, not so much who certifies it as meeting such.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Based on your understanding, these certifying agencies are certifying in compliance with the necessary standard to fit the requirements of the RFP and whatever facility the city ends up using.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Appreciate that. Mahalo for the clarification. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the chair is going to recommend that Bill 47, 2023 be amended to the posted CD1 OCS 2023 0921-10-9-23 1025 AM. Any discussion, objections, or reservations to that amendment? Hearing none, so ordered. And then the chair is going to recommend that Bill 47, 2023 CD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion on that recommendation, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. And next we'll go to agenda item number 6 for action, Bill 56, 2023, establishing a commercial property assessed financing program for financing certain qualifying improvements. I'd go ahead and invite Director Kawano up if he's, sorry, I can't see over the equipment, but if you wanted to come up and provide any additional insight or position on this matter before we go into testimony.
Thank you, Housing Chair Wire. I really don't have any new insights or positions. As I stated during our last full council meeting with regard to Bill 56, 2023, the concept behind it of looking at looking for financing tools to help to fund these types of investments for more sustainability, we don't have an issue with it. Currently, the requirements of the bill cannot be implemented because we are still working with HGIA and the state's AG's office to address specific issues related to using filing an assessment or levying an assessment to collect delinquent loan balances under the program. So we're still working on that. HGIA anytime now should be sending us a new draft MOA for review. But as of right now, we're on hold. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Director. I'll note that there was a Corporation Counsel memo. If we wanted to dive into any legal advice, we would have to go into executive session, which I'm not opposed to, but just throwing that out as a reminder. Were there any other questions for Director? Seeing none, we'll go to in-person testifiers. And I believe we have Gwen Yamamoto Lau as the only registered testifier. If anyone else is here to testify, you could come up to the front and be prepared to go next. Aloha, Ms. Lau. Feel free to proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I am Gwen Yamamoto Lau from the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority, and I stand on my written testimony in strong support of Bill 56. I also wanted to mention, so our Deputy AG is drafting a MOA, but it's not on anything to do with levying the assessment. I think that is clear in the bill that was passed by the state last year, as well as the ordinance coupled with that. But I also wanted to mention that HGIA's administration of this program includes marketing the program, meeting the potential applicants and lenders, vetting loan requests and ensuring it meets eligibility requirements, recording the summary memorandum of the CPACE financing in the Bureau of Conveyances, sending semi-annual invoices, collecting the payments and remitting it to the lenders, providing the city with ongoing reports, and as applicable, doing early collections of past due payments following the city's established collection policies and procedures. Upon loan closing, HGIA will provide the city with the recorded memorandum along with a check for a fee to the city equal to 25 basis points or with a cap of $12,500. So we're looking at minimizing any work for the city, and this will leverage, this is a no risk financing to the city that can help commercial property owners. Thank you.
Mahalo for that. Any questions at this time for the testifier? Sensing none, thank you for your testimony. If anyone else wanted to come forward in the gallery to testify, not seeing any, we'll go to remote registered testifiers. And we'll start with Michael Yaki, followed by Cliff Kellogg, followed by Mark Glick, and then Shelby DuPont. So Mr. Yaki, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chair Wire, and thank you for your sponsorship of this ordinance. I'm Michael Yaki. I'm the Senior Vice President and Senior Counsel for Petros Pace Finance. We're the country's largest originator of CPACE financing, and we're looking forward to a really strong program in Honolulu, as there are in 33 states and hundreds of counties across this country. And the one common denominator for all of these programs is that the local government levies a CPACE assessment pursuant to implementing legislative action as required by state and or local law. And so while the administration agreement between HGA and Honolulu may be done by executive action by the mayor, that's just for the administration, as Ms. Yamamoto Lau pointed out. But the power to place the assessment on the property, the ability to secure the lien on the property in the manner that is required by CPACE capital providers in order to make this funding happen, has to be done in pursuant to the appropriate authorization by the county. And under the powers in the Honolulu Charter, that is done by legislative action of the City Council. This ordinance, therefore, is necessary in order to make this program work. We're very pleased that you're going forward with this. I also just wanted to mention that I also spoke with the tax collector and treasurer for Travis County, Texas, which operates a program administratively similar to what's going to be enacted in Honolulu, and I can relay what those experiences are, because I think it can shed light on how little cost and activity will be required of Honolulu City and County in running this program. Thank you very much for this. We're in strong support of Ordinance 56.
Okay, mahalo, Mr. Kellogg, or Yaki, my apologies. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, we'll go to Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you very much, Chair Wire, for convening this hearing on Bill 56. I've submitted written testimony for the record. The purpose of this ordinance is to authorize the levying of the assessment, and that is why the ordinance is called for. And without the ability to levy an assessment, then private investors will not provide the capital that's necessary to make these loans. This is a program that is well established in more than 33 other states. And so the state legislature in Hawaii has also spoken on this. And so I believe that there should be some confidence in proceeding. We have consulted with local council in Honolulu, who assures us that this program is just like a community facilities district financing on an individual owner scale. This is another voluntary financing option for commercial property owners. This does not involve any cost whatsoever to the city of Honolulu, because the program will be administered by the HGIA, and any costs of enforcement are charged to the private capital provider. So I believe that this ordinance is consistent with all that is required by the legislation, and is also consistent with the practice that has been underway in more than 30 states for more than a decade. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify and in support of Bill 56. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Mahalo, Mr. Kellogg. Any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, appreciate your testimony. We'll go to Mr. Glick if you're on. Please unmute and proceed when you're ready.
Hello from the Hawaii State Energy Office. I am Maria Tomei, representing Mark Glick. You have our testimony in support of Bill 56. We defer to the Hawaii Green Infrastructure Authority, Gwen Yamamoto Lau, for any questions. Thank you for hearing this bill.
Mahalo. And next, Shelby DuPont. Please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, committee, for this opportunity to testify. My name is Shelby, and I'm representing Nuveen Green Capital, the nation's leading CPACE capital provider. CPACE financing supports energy efficiency, renewable, and resiliency projects on commercial property. The public benefit of these projects is recognized as a special assessment on the property's land record. Capital providers like my firm will require a legal opinion from Hawaii Council on the validity of Honolulu's assessment mechanism prior to our ability to fund any CPACE projects. And to issue this validity opinion, an ordinance like Bill 56 is specifically required to ensure CPACE is treated as a valid special assessment, as is the intention of Hawaii statute. Without Bill 56, capital providers won't be able to finance projects, and Honolulu constituents won't be able to access the CPACE program to fund their energy and resiliency projects. For this reason, Nuveen Green Capital strongly supports Bill 56. Thank you. Mahalo.
Mahalo for that. Any questions for the testifiers? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, do we have any unregistered online testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, mahalo. I might ask Ms. Yamamoto Lau to come back up, if I may. And if you could just walk me through, because it sounds like some of the concerns by the city administration are, whether the effect of the law would be making the city a collection agency for private lenders. Do you have any insight on that or suggestions if we should ask anyone else on the
Right. So
committee?
I think Michael Yaki would be a great testifier, but it's no different from a special district assessment that the city already does, say for Waikiki. There has been no foreclosures nationwide. There's $4 billion of CPACE loans out there, 2,900 of them out there, no foreclosures in that.
Okay. And just so we can better understand when you say, like for Waikiki, so in Waikiki, there's a business improvement district. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, and then in addition to the property tax that everybody pays, they also pay that additional assessment based on the type of property they are.
My guess is there was some kind of bond possibly issued for improvements in Waikiki.
Oh, so it's the bond that is applicable, or?
In that case.
Okay.
In CPACE, there is no bond issuance. It's all private capital.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the city's bonding?
Is my guess. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my guess.
Okay. No, maybe I'll ask Mr. Eggett if you'd like to. You're shaking your head, so do you have any insight on the relationship between
the
CPACE?
business improvement districts in
Yeah.
Waikiki are able by ordinance to issue bonds, but the city is not liable to repay those bonds. Only the district itself.
Perfect. Appreciate that. And then I'll open it up to any other questions from council members. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close testimony. And if there's no discussion, I'll go ahead and make my recommendation. Okay. So the chair is going to recommend that Bill 56 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. There being no further business, I believe we were starting executive management 5 minutes from now, so 3:55. This meeting is adjourned. Mahalo.